The best way to see the Cedars is to come and see us on a normal day. As I say, I'll be delighted to show you around and show you what we have to offer. Thank you. Okay, so one of the themes in the video is this idea that parents are the first and most important educators of their children. And as it says in the video, this colours everything that we do. Now, this idea as partnership with parents is often misunderstood because it's used to mean different things in different schools. And often it refers to co-opting parents into the mission of the school. But we mean something different by that here. And we almost turn that on its head to mean that we are supporting parents in their mission as first educators. And this understanding of the respective roles of parents goes right to the heart of what we mean by education. So it is much more than what happens at school. And it's about working with parents to help each boy become the very best young man that he can be. And we like to use the phrase joint project to describe the relationship that we have with parents here. So it's parents and teachers working in harmony for the good of each boy. So both in our respective spheres. So it's not about teachers trying to usurp the role of parents or vice versa, but just ensuring that in those two spheres of life in which young people spend most of their time, that they're receiving a consistent message. So that it all works towards their personal development. So obviously academic achievement is absolutely central, but we go beyond that. And in our vision, we look towards the flourishing of each individual. Now, I'm a parent myself, and like you, I'm sure, I don't just want my child to pass exams, but I want him to be the sort of person, I want him to grow into a happy, fulfilled adult who will add value to the lives of others. And when we talk about these things, we're really getting into the realm of character. Now, I think a good way of thinking about character is as the sum of habits that somebody has. There's a well-known aphorism, you've probably heard it before, which talks about how your habits, or rather your thoughts become your deeds become your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. And this is very much what I'm talking about here. So these good habits, these virtues, are what help us to live well as human beings. And when I say live well, I'm obviously not talking about good food and so on. I'm talking about being effective as human beings. So being able to develop our talents, to form good friendships, in later life to be good employees, to be good husbands and fathers, and so on. Now, in recent years, character has become really quite popular, and it's not hard to see why. For one thing, it does help with academic outcomes. Working on character is absolutely not opposed to academic achievement. Quite the opposite. So if you take, for example, a boy who can arrive home from school and then resist the powerful lure of the PlayStation and get straight down to work, that may be a small thing, but actually, so often it's a life-changing thing. So these are the type of habits that I'm talking about. It's to do with self-control, being able to work hard, the habit of generosity, and so on. I think another benefit of character, which has been latched onto recently, is that it actually makes people happier. I remember being struck a few years ago when I attended a conference on teenage mental health, and one of the speakers was a child psychologist, Tina Ray, who's written some very interesting books on teenage mental health. And what really struck me about her talk was that without using the word virtue, she was really talking about the virtues when she was describing the strategies that she uses to help young people who are experiencing problems with mental health, encouraging gratitude, encouraging generosity, and so on. Now, these alone are very good reasons to take character seriously, but for us, it goes even deeper than that. And we think of character really as who you are. Going back to that aphorism I mentioned before, these habits become your destiny to a great extent. Also, in terms of how character is formed, it's that repetition. To summarize Aristotle, we are what we repeatedly do. So the way we behave becomes our habits. And this cuts both ways, because whatever environment a child is in, their character is being formed. So it's not an optional extra. I think some people think of it in that way and think, well, some schools have golf courses and so on. We don't have a golf course. But actually character is happening, whether we like it or not. And so if a child is in an environment where good character is not intentionally being formed, then there's always a danger that they will unwittingly pick up, habits that are unhelpful. And, to give you some practical examples of this, I'm sure you in your own homes will, just through the ordinary stuff of daily home life, you'll help your children to acquire these good habits by, requiring them to do the right thing, to keep their bedroom tidy, to help around the house, all those things. And so at school, it's a different sphere of their lives, but we're operating in very much the same way. We're trying to use the opportunities that ordinary school life provides to help each boy to become, to acquire that good character and to become the best that he can be. So, for example, when boys hand in work, we're very keen that they hand in the best that they can do within the time available. And if it isn't the best they can do, then a teacher is doing a boy no favors whatsoever if he accepts that work. He should say, you can do better than this, and you need to raise your standards, because then that boy is being helped to acquire those high standards and that good character. So that's one of the ways that we support the formation of character here at the Cedars, but there are other things we do as well. I think a big part of it is example. There's a wonderful quote from the psychologist Jung, where he says, "We learn more from who our teachers are than from what they say." And I think there's so much truth in that. And when I think back to my own school days, the people who stand out, the teachers who stand out, they don't stand out really for what they taught me particularly, but for who they were. That's what left a mark on me. And so we do go to great lengths to appoint teachers who are both good professionals, good at what they do, good teachers, but also the type of people who can give that example of striving for good character. The type of teachers who boys can latch onto and think, I want to be like that, because ultimately these virtues are attractive. When we see them in others, we want to imitate them. Another thing that's very important is this idea of school culture. And every school has a culture, and it's important that that culture is one in which high expectations are encouraged, and achievement, academic achievement, is seen as something positive. And it's not a given in schools. It's not always the case. But again, the culture we have here is one where boys are proud to do well. They're very pleased to answer questions in class, or to do well in exams, or to produce good work. That's seen as something which is valued and praiseworthy. So, and that culture tends to transmit through the school, and it becomes self-reinforcing. So again, it's another important aspect of what we do here. Now, certainly one of the most distinctive things that we do is through what we call our tutorial system. And that really is an important part of the school and our approach to education. And I'm going to invite one of my colleagues, Mr. Hanoko. So Mr. Hanoko is what we call our Director of Formation, and his role includes oversight of the tutorial system, making sure that boys and parents are getting the most out of the tutorial system. So he's now going to talk to you briefly about what the tutorial system entails.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Teague. So good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Hinojo, and I am the Director of Formation, as Mr. Teague just mentioned. So I'm responsible for looking after the tutorial system. So as Mr. Teague mentioned just a minute ago, the most distinctive feature of the series is the partnership that we build with parents. And essentially what this means is that we collaborate with you to educate your children beyond the classroom, in the sense that we want to have a joint project. So therefore, this means that we are very keen to ensure that we engage the boys to be the best version of themselves. And to this end, we do three things. Firstly, we have academic rigor, because that's the place where essentially we, or the boys, sort of fulfill their place in society through work, that they kind of craft themselves by working well. Secondly, through the virtues, as Mr. Teague was saying. And thirdly, specifically by having a personal tutor, a mentor that will help them. So what does the tutor do? Well, a number of things, but perhaps the most important thing is to have one-to-one conversations with every student that he tutors, because that way he ensures that the formation that the pupil receives, or indeed the personal development of that pupil, is channeled. So that tutor will get to know the student typically very well because of the regular conversations that they have. And therefore, he can actually enable the student to grow to be that best version of himself. Now, as we were saying before, is the most distinctive feature of the school. And this is because it's quite unusual in a sense of what goes on in tutorials. It's very much a friendly conversation, but at the same time, a conversation teacher-student, of course, nonetheless, but one that is with the idea of ensuring that the students have good role models, as Mr. Teague was saying. So what do we do? Well, first of all, to build rapport, that we try and sort of go deep into the life of a student to enable them to really grow beyond the classroom, of course, academically, as we were saying before, but to really be the best version of themselves. Secondly, we do it periodically. So typically a student will meet a tutor every 3 weeks, and always respecting the freedom of the individual, in a sense that, of course, we want them to be the best that they can possibly be, but we try and respect their freedom. We're very much a sort of school with a Catholic ethos, but even, for instance, in that respect, you see, we have mass 3 times a week, but the students can go if they want to. So in that sense, it's always respecting the pupils' freedom. Fourthly, we try and be a channel between the home and the school, because again, we very much want to be part of your project, your educational project, and therefore we want to be that bridge that so that you can enable your son to be the best that he can possibly be. And finally, we try and sort of channel everything that happens to a particular boy at school through the tutorial system, that we try and sort of get to know them really well, so that we can advise them in terms of how, if they are struggling in a particular subject, or indeed if they're going through a particular sort of moment in their development that needs further attention. So we try and sort of really pick those aspects in somebody's development. Finally, in order to build this communication between school and home, we have what is called parent-tutor meetings. So twice a year rather, we have meetings with the tutor and the parents to have sort of lengthy conversations to sort of see what goes on at school, what goes on at home, and to reinforce this area of the joint development, the joint project that we were talking about before. Of course, we try and keep periodic conversations and sort of regular contact by email, or indeed if there is anything that needs to be addressed, we can meet as many times as possible as needed. But usually we meet twice a week at the very least. And finally, just to say that the fruit of these conversations is very often a wonderful relationship between home and school, because we work in the same, or we push the family, the school in the same direction, because we very much want to support families. We very much want to support you. And just to finish that, I would be very happy to answer any questions that there are to do with the tutorial system. So thank you very much, Mr. Teague.
Thank you, Pablo. And it's really hard to overestimate how how great an impact the tutorial system has on the boys here at school. It's phenomenally powerful. Okay, I just want to say a few words about the Catholic ethos, because the Cedars is a school with a Catholic ethos. First of all, we welcome boys of all faiths and none. So we have a mix of boys here. I'd say about, I think 2/3 are Catholic, and we have a full range of boys. And we see that as a great strength of the school. We think everybody benefits from that mix within the school. Now, there are some outward manifestations of this ethos. So, for example, we start the day with a prayer during form time, and we finish the day with a prayer. Mass is celebrated 3 times a week during school time. Boys have an absolute free choice over whether to attend that or not. So we tend not to have, class masses or year masses. It's something that we leave to the individual freedom of the boys. Now, apart from these external aspects or external manifestations of the Catholic ethos, there is a, if you like, a more internal message, subliminal message, if you like, which is a product of the ethos. And I'd sum that up in 4 statements. So first of all, that our deepest purpose in life is self-giving love, and that we find ourselves when we make that gift of ourselves. That love is lived out in large part through service of others. And in fact, that's reflected on our motto, in Gaudio Serviamus, may we serve joyfully. That each of us has a distinct purpose in life to fulfill, and that we fulfill that mission, that purpose, that mission of service with joy in the knowledge that we're children of God. So these are the, if you like, this is the core of that Catholic ethos and how it plays out in the school. Okay, another way in which the school is distinctive is that we're relatively small. I mean, at the moment, we're pretty full on this site, and actually we'd like to be bigger. And so we're looking at, possible solutions to that. We'd like to expand the site, but we are relatively small. Now, I remember back when the school started, I remember writing down a list of the advantages and the disadvantages of small and large schools, because all of us here have obviously worked in larger schools before. And when I finished my list, I realized that most of the advantages of small schools were for the pupils themselves, and most of the advantages for large schools tend to be more for the schools. And I still think that's true. And what's been really interesting is that I've got 5 children. My youngest son started here at the Cedars in September 2015, and in fact, he's just joined the 6th form. My other children were too old to join the Cedars, but that's given me a different perspective on the school, and I've really noticed some of the benefits, even some unexpected benefits of him being in that smaller environment. Because I think in a large school, you'll have people at the top who will shine. Maybe that 5 to 10%. You may have people who come to attention for other reasons, but you tend to end up with a vast mass, maybe 70% of pupils who are, maybe doing okay, but perhaps they could be doing a lot better. But does anybody really know that? And obviously schools will have various tracking systems and pastoral systems to mitigate these effects of their size, but I don't think there's any real substitute for, being able to really know the boys well in the way that you can in a small school. And one of the things I like about being at the Cedars is that, when I walk around the school, it's not just a question of knowing boys' names, but in most cases, it's being able to resume a conversation with them. And how did your trial go over the weekend? Your Harlequin's trial, or whatever it may be, not a court trial, or how's your grandmother? I heard she'd been ill. So it's nice to know boys that well, and to know their strengths and their struggles, and it does enable us to help them much more. And of course, the other thing is that everybody shines in some way. And I can think of one boy who I used to tutor. He's left the school now, but he was. I found out through being his tutor, that he was a very good amateur filmmaker, and he'd set up a very impressive YouTube channel. And we were able to get him to start a film club at the school where he was involving other boys in making films. We invested in some equipment for them, and he was able to take a lead in that. And it was nice that we ended up with a film club. That was great and good for the school. But actually, what was far more powerful was the impact on that boy, that through taking responsibility, through taking the initiative and being able to lead others and share his expertise, he really started to flourish in a way that he hadn't before. And I do wonder, in a different school, would anybody have found out? Would anybody have been able to take advantage of that? So, so as I say, I don't think we'll always be as small as we are now, but it certainly is an advantage, and we don't want to be huge, that's for sure. Okay, I mentioned before that the academic life of the school is absolutely central. We are an academic institution. Now, my own experience in schools is, for most of my career, I've taught in what are described as academic boys' schools. So, for example, before coming to the Cedars, I was at a local grammar school. And before that, I worked in a school called Magdalen College School in Oxford, which is usually one of the top 2 or 3 boys' schools in the UK in terms of results. And it is a very good school. But I've always found it odd that schools tend to be called academic because of the pupils they take rather than what they do for their pupils. I mean, that's not to say that some of these schools don't do marvelous things for their pupils. Some do. But it seems to me that what is far more important is not simply to take those boys or girls who are going to achieve most highly, regardless of which school they go to. What's more important, surely, is what we do for those pupils and what value we add. And when I talk about adding value, I'm not simply talking about in terms of exam results, but far more actually in terms of their intellectual curiosity and their love of learning and respect for scholarship. And these are things that we place a high priority on at the Cedars, and we go to great trouble to try and foster those attitudes. And there are various ways in which we do that. I'll just give you a couple of examples. So every Friday we have what we call enrichment. During enrichment, every single boy in the school spends part of the morning in a lesson which has absolutely nothing to do with the taught curriculum, or with the examined curriculum rather. And the whole point is to show boys that actually life is interesting, the world is an interesting place, an exciting place, and that we don't learn things simply to pass exams. It's the other way around. We have exams because it's important and enriching to know things. Topics, I mean, I won't read out a long list of the topics covered, but believe you me, they are fairly comprehensive. I attend some of them myself, and I remember going to one about the history of the bicycle in quite a skeptical frame of mind, and coming away absolutely riveted and with an interest in bicycles that's endured to this day. We also have Beckett seminars. So Beckett seminars are seminars which are nearly always given by boys themselves. So they prepare a talk on a topic of interest. Again, not usually to do with the examined curriculum, but just something which they're interested in. And it's an opportunity for them to share their interest with their peers and indeed with staff and sometimes visitors. And again, the range of topics covered is very wide, covering current politics, history, scientific topics. We had a really interesting one on aviation quite recently. Beckett seminars, I think, also contribute to building up that respect for knowledge for its own sake, and not just as a way of passing exams. I think another thing that we do which supports this is what we call eudaimonia. I think it's probably meant to be pronounced eudaimonia, but it's a Greek word, and it describes a type of happiness or a particular type of happiness which is the fruit of study and a life well lived. And eudaimonia is really an approach to our teaching. It's something which cuts through all subjects, and indeed through the life of the school. And I'll try and give you a very quick overview of it. First of all, what we're trying to do is to make sure that boys are exposed to the big ideas, because it's very easy when you're studying a subject to get caught up in the minutiae of exam specifications, but really to miss the point of what you're studying. So for example, if you're studying, I don't know, as a scientist, special relativity, and you might be fine with the technical details, but it's a shame if you don't see the significance of that as an idea in the early 20th century and the impact it had on, for example, on philosophy and on the way that people saw the world. And we think it's important that boys appreciate those things. And we think also that being able to link their thinking across different disciplines helps them to think more fluently. And in fact, this was really the inspiration for eudaimonia in the first place. It was a recognition, mainly from conversations with university admissions tutors, that there are a great many students who may do very well in their A-level exams and achieve 3 or 4 grades at A-star at A-level, but who haven't quite learned how to think fluently. Well, obviously it's important to pass exams, but it's also important to be able to think. And so this is why we place a high priority on this. And we want to make sure that the boys who leave the Cedars are able to apply the knowledge that they've gained, with some originality. And that's something which doesn't happen overnight, but all the things I've described, we think contribute to developing that agility of thought. Okay, so a school which is academic in the sense that I've just described should achieve good results. So our latest headline results at A-level, 75% of last year's cohort achieved grades of A and A-star. In fact, 39% were at the top grade, A-star. The vast majority of the boys, all bar 3 in fact, have progressed to Russell Group universities this autumn. The 3 that haven't, one's gone to a very highly regarded university in Spain, the University of Navarre, which was ranked in the top 5 European universities quite recently. Another one is applying for a sports scholarship in the United States. And the other one is our ex-head boy who's on a gap year here, doing an absolutely fantastic job before he starts university next year. At GCSE, 2 in 3 of the grades achieved by, across the board were at A, or grade 7 as it's now called, and above. 1 in 10 grades were at 9, which is the top grade, it's more than A-star if you're not up to speed with these new grades yet. Essentially, in the new system, grades 8 and 9 are both A-star, but 9 make up a fairly small minority of all the A-stars that are given. So you could think of it as a top A-star. So 10% of the grades achieved were those top A-stars, which we were pleased with. But I think actually the most striking statistic is that the whole cohort achieved on average the equivalent of more than 10 grade 7s each. So that's more than 10 grade 7s, or the equivalent of that, on average for each boy. Now, when you consider that this was a like all our cohorts, we're not trying to be super academically selective. We take boys with a range of abilities, but that really is, they achieved extremely well. Okay, I'm going to move on to the co-curriculum. So we certainly value the contribution of the co-curriculum here at the Cedars, particularly to personal development. Sport is big, as you'd expect, and I think it's fair to say that we punch above our weight. We've for a new and fairly small school, we've already won outright a couple of sevens tournaments. In fact, quite recently we were drawn in a local sevens competition. I think it was the Surrey Sevens against, I won't mention the school, but it was a very large school with a fine rugby reputation, about 1.5 miles away from here, and we beat them in the Surrey Sevens, which we haven't forgotten. and I'm not sure they have either, actually. But so we certainly punch above our weight. Obviously, COVID has changed things somewhat in that our opportunities for competitive sport are more limited, but the boys, or at least some of the boys, many of the boys are out there every Saturday morning still training. Once fixtures are back on the agenda, once the COVID situation changes, then we'll resume them straight away. So we have a good fixture list, which includes many local schools. Whitgift, Trinity, we play Dulwich College, University College School, Hampstead, St Dunstan's, and so on. So we are very much on the circuit. We enter various national competitions as well. We play rugby in the first term, football in the second term, and cricket in the third term. Now, if you were here for the video, you would have seen the opening shots, which give a fantastic view of our playing fields. So we have several acres at the back. Now, if you missed that, don't worry, because we're going to send a video or a link to the video out to you later this week, so you can see those fields. And obviously, do come and visit the school, and we can show you them for real. But we're very fortunate here to have some fantastic fields to play on. Music is a major growth area, and we have 3 choirs. We have various musical ensembles. Bands, we have an orchestra, which is growing. In fact, it's growing too rapidly, which is a wonderful problem to have. But we're actually running out of space for the orchestra. So this is a problem we're going to have to solve. But it's great to see the enthusiasm that the boys have for school music, and it really is taking off. So we've got a couple of if you like, big bands as well. We've got Jules Holland's saxophonist coming in every week to support that. So, it's something the boys really enjoy and a very important part of school life. There are opportunities for drama. So we put on a number of plays. I mean, plays we've done in the past, As You Like It, 12 Angry Men, Julius Caesar, an adaptation of Homer's Odyssey, which is quite interesting. We're doing a musical this year. So that will be in the summer term. Clubs and societies, we have the range you'd expect. Debating is really popular. In fact, we've done rather well in debating, and we were chosen to host the London regional final of the English Schools Union debating competition about 18 months ago. We're in the Oxford Union debating competition now as well. So it's something, again, which is growing and that we're doing well in. Chess, lots of other clubs. I mean, there's one called Build a Computer where that's what the boys do. They build their own computer over a period of time. Okay, so I'm sure there'll be some questions on this as well, but I better not speak for too long. So I'm just going to, our admissions registrar, Sally Norman, who I'm sure you would have been in touch with before, many of you would have been, she's recorded a short video just to explain the admissions procedure. So we're just going to show you that video now, and then I'll be back with a couple more things to say.
Hello, I'm Sally Norman, and I'll be looking after you throughout your admissions process to the Cedars. Applications for 2021 are now open, and if you visit our website, underneath the admissions tab, you can find our online application form and your link to pay your admissions fee. Once this process has taken place, we will be in touch with your son's current school to obtain a reference. All boys are then invited to sit the entrance exam on Friday the 8th of January. The exam will take place in the morning. If you've applied for a scholarship for your son, he will have his assessment in the afternoon of the 8th of January. Scholarship packs are available from our website underneath the admissions tab. You must download the pack, complete the details and return to me by the 30th of November. Monday the 30th of November is our deadline for applications, scholarships and bursaries. Bursary forms can be obtained by sending me an email, and I will reply sending you the pack, which includes details of how to complete the form. Throughout January, we will then be having Zoom interviews with the boys and their parents. We will then be back in touch with you on the 12th of February via email, and your email may contain an offer, notice of any bursary or any award that your son has obtained. You will then have through to the 5th of March to accept your place at the Cedars. We sincerely hope you do, and we look forward to seeing you in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the admissions procedure, and you can find more information about that on the website as well. Now, induction, I think, is really important for boys joining the school. And so we have our head of lower school here this evening. His name is Ben Potter. And Ben's going to talk briefly about the induction procedures that we have here to make sure that boys settle into school well and have the best possible start when they join the school. So I'm now going to hand over to Ben Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Teague. Okay, thank you for coming tonight, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here with you all. So as Mr. Teague has said, my name is Benjamin Potter. I'm the head of lower school here at the Cedars. Really, my job comes down to three main things, and it goes hand in hand with especially the Year 7s and Year 9s who are joining us, is to focus on three things, which is number one, is to make sure that your child feels safe. Number two, that your child feels happy. And number three, that your child is progressing within school. And so when they arrive at school on their first day, either in Year 7 or Year 9, I take them through an induction day. On this day, we talk about the rules of the school, we talk about our processes within the school, we talk about all the different things that they need to know in order to get on and be helpful and successful within our environment. But my role really is not just that one day. I don't just sort of give them that, here's what school is, and send them off into it, but I try and be involved in as much as I can in all the different lives of the students that come through our doors. And so when I'm talking about my goal is to make them feel happy and to make them feel like that they are safe, is for them to also understand is that sometimes within our lives, things will take place that will cause us to not feel happy and to not feel safe. And for them to understand that actually they can come and talk to me at any point, they can come to my office, I show them where it is, and they can come and have a conversation about how they're going. I also make sure that I'm just keeping a track of especially the Year 7s and Year 9s as they come in. I keep a special eye on the Year 7s in their first few weeks. I check in with teachers to see how they're going with the academic, how they're going with adjusting with new friendships, and how they're going in general with the transition from their primary schools to now into secondary school. And for Year 9 boys, especially who've coming across from a school and are jumping into a cohort where maybe they're one of 4 or 5 new boys and they're trying to make new friends, I keep on top of that to ensure that they feel like they are settling into the school and feeling really supported. Especially with the Year 7s, I take them through this process of understanding of that friendship is a community, and that actually as they're all coming on this shared journey of new experiences, they're coming to a new school and they've got all these wonderful, exciting things, that actually as a cohort, they can work together because they're going to be forming all of these things at the same time. And that those bonds of friendship can be built. And how can we look out for each other and support each other through that time? So my job is, sometimes boys will come into my office because maybe something potentially has gone wrong. But even through that situation, we're working to help that young boy to become a really successful and happy young man. And so with all of those sorts of things, I'm heavily involved in their lives, and I'm heavily involved in making sure that they feel like they're supported and cared for, and that the transition that they go through from one school to the next is easy and comfortable. I'm going to keep it brief because we've got some questions that I think would be great for us to get to answer. So that's a little bit from me, but I'm always happy to have a conversation about anything that needs as we move forward. So I'll pass it back to Mr. Teague so we can start the Q&A, I believe, next.
Okay, thank you, Ben. And I think Ben and Pablo are going to stay around because we're going to go on to questions now. I've just been having a flick through. We've got quite a few questions. So And it's not too late to ask a question if you want to. So I'm just going to go through these questions in the order in which they've been asked. So we've got one here. What is your percentage of children with special needs? Well, I don't have the figure offhand, but I think we have a couple of boys in year 7 who have special needs, and that's probably, I would say that's more or less typical throughout the school. Some year groups will have a few more, some will have fewer. We can deal well with mild to moderate dyslexia. Some boys might have a special need to do with their hearing and so on. But you know, if your child does have a particular learning need, then the best thing is to discuss that with us, and we can talk about it on an individual basis and see whether we would be able to give them the support that they need. So do get in touch, as I say, if you want to discuss that individually. There's a question here about single-sex education. So the Cedars is a school for boys. How do you ensure that the students have the opportunity to interact with the girls? Well, I didn't cover anything in my talk about the fact that we are single-sex. I mean, first of all, there was a study done on this topic about 10 years ago. It was Professor Alan Smithers from the University of Buckingham, and he looked at university students and how they were able to socialize with particularly with people of the opposite sex at university, having been in single-sex schools or in co-educational schools. And what he found was that there was actually no significant difference at all. And I suspect the reason is because that ability to connect with people is I think as much a function of character as anything else. You know, I don't think it's simply a question of you know, whether you're in a single-sex school or a co-educational school. But in terms of the opportunities to interact, we don't have a great many at school because it is a boys' school. The vast majority of our boys would have plenty of opportunities outside of school. I mean, they're at school for a few hours a day. And I think actually one of the great advantages of single-sex schools is that they give boys and girls the freedom for those few hours each day to be themselves without the pressure that adolescents can feel in the presence of the opposite sex. And I remember when I first started working in a boys' school, I'd previously only worked in co-educational schools, and I can still remember being struck by the sight of someone who I knew was the captain of the first 15, walking without any self-consciousness at all, with a violin under his arm. And I think one of the great things about a single-sex school is that there's no pressure to conform to crude stereotypes. You know, boys don't feel the need to act up to what they think masculinity is at age 14, but they're free to follow their own interests. You know, in a boys' school, the keenest reader is a boy, the best linguist is a boy, the best writer is a boy. In co-educational schools, that most often isn't the case. And that can have an effect on how boys see different areas of the curriculum. Okay, there's a question here. Please, can you confirm what is meant when you say you value the choice of the child? So I think perhaps actually Mr. Hanako, because Mr. Hanako talked a little bit about freedom. So if I can bring Pablo in on this one to answer that question.
Yeah. It's a very good question, and I referred to it when looking at tutorials. So I perhaps could give you 2 examples just to sort of make it more specific. So the first one, for instance, was during the lockdown, one of my tutees was finding the lockdown quite challenging, and therefore he was finding studying very, very difficult. And as a result, he would spend more than necessary, let's put it that way, playing video games. Now, of course, the beauty of the tutorials is that it goes beyond the classroom. And so therefore, of course, we have boundaries and discipline and so on. But in a way, the beauty of the tutorials is that it goes beyond. And so therefore, we have to move the hearts of the students when it comes to helping them to do the right thing. So in this particular instance, for instance, it was no good for me to say, look, that's the wrong thing to do. And so therefore, we kind of had somehow to help him to choose the right thing to do, which was not to play several hours computer games, and therefore to sort of ensure that he read, that he made good use of his weekends and so on. So that would be one aspect. Another aspect, for instance, was the last tutorial I had just yesterday, who was on the other side of the spectrum, who, is a boy in year 11 who's spending a huge amount of hours studying, very studious, very disciplined. But his dad told me 2 days ago, listen, I don't get to see my son much because he studies so much, which is very positive. But anyway, I was having a word with him and I said, look, you really should make sure that you make the most out of your good habits of order and organization to ensure that you spend time with your family, right? So is again that idea of helping them to see the good in the things that they ought to do, rather than just pushing them in a particular way. Because our experience is that when we do that, when we help students to do the right thing because they want to, then it really stays with them, yeah. And therefore they become those things, those people that we were talking about before, the best version of themselves.
Thank you, Pablo. Next question here. I can answer this quite quickly. Do extracurricular activities take place only after school, or is it a combination of pre-after school and lunchtime activities? Well, the answer is that it is a combination of activities before school, after school, and at lunchtime. So quite a range of things there. Next question: would sports clubs be suitable for a not very sporty boy who enjoys a variety of sports? Well, we have what we call core sports, which are the sports that we compete in a big way, and those are the termly sports I mentioned before. But actually, the boys do get exposed to plenty of other sports as well. So for example, they'll play handball, Gaelic football. There are normally two sports that they encounter within PE lessons in each term. You've listed a few sports here, including swimming. I'm afraid we don't do swimming at school. We used to actually, but we don't have a swimming pool on site. We have some very good swimmers here and members of a very good local polo team, but they do that outside school, and where necessary, we'll support them to do that. We've also had London Olympic gold-winning tennis players and various others. So they managed to juggle that, but we simply can't cater for all sports. Okay, one of the sports you've mentioned is football. Actually, we certainly play football. We do a lot of football, and we do very well in that. Do you do trumpet lessons? Well, yes, we do. And I'm glad you asked actually about music lessons, because we will do, we'll find a teacher for just about any instrument you want to play. I probably shouldn't have said that, but certainly all the orchestral instruments, anything like that, we will find a teacher. And so we have, I don't know how many, I forget, but a lot of peripatetic music teachers come in every week. And the range of instruments played by boys here is growing all the time. And in fact, we're now encouraging year 7s to take up instruments. So we're loaning, at the moment we're concentrating on building up our string section. So we're loaning cellos and violins, and we're enabling group lessons in those instruments for year 7 boys who want to start taking up an instrument. It's something that is really well worth encouraging. But to trumpet lessons, yes, absolutely. Next question is, do we get to see a tour of the school? Yes, if you'd like a tour, please get in touch with Mrs. Norman. We're only too happy to arrange tours. Obviously, it's unfortunate we can't have a conventional open day because of the current restrictions, but do come and see the school. We'd always encourage people to come and see the school during the school day. That is the best way to see the school. Right. How diverse is the school and staff? Well, I think we're a pretty diverse bunch. I mean, it is a boys' school. The majority of teachers here are men. We have a number of female teachers. Certainly, in terms of racially, we're a very diverse staff. So hopefully that's answered your question. But as I say, if not, do drop me an email if there's something else. But okay, what is the average size of classes? So the average class size is around 18, and places available for year 7. We're actually looking at expanding because we've got a bit more space this year than in previous years, and so we're looking at expanding that year 7 intake to have class sizes of 22. So that means that we have 44 places in year 7 2021, which is more than we've been able to offer in the past. Well, there's another question here. Are all the teachers male? Well, I suppose the 3 of us tonight are, but no, we're not all male. We've got a number of female colleagues as well. But it is. I'm glad that we've got a good number of male teachers because I think that's quite important in a boys' school. I think it's good to have that balance. What do you do in PE? I think Mr. Potter, is this one for you really? Because you're closer to the. Mr. Potter isn't a PE teacher, but he's closer to the action than I am these days.
Yeah. So in PE, we do quite a number of sports. As Mr. Teague said, the PE staff try to give quite a wide range of different aspects of PE, but often they're working a lot on a few of their core values, which they have, which are camaraderie, teamwork, leadership. And it's this idea of building these through sport, not just let's go out there and kick the ball around, but actually let's focus on building leadership skills through these things. But they do a wide variety of different sports, as we've said. So they've just done a handball competition. They've done a Gaelic football competition for house. So within the PE lessons, we split up into the different houses for their year groups. They do after school sports, which is great. And just to answer one of the earlier questions about if the boy is not necessarily super sporty, they also, within sport clubs, they do a running club in the mornings. They do a bit of a workout session some mornings. And the PE staff are very open to boys coming to them and saying, I'm interested in this. Can we try this out? And they try and carve time out either in the morning or after school in order to cater for those things. So they do get quite a comprehensive go at different sports. And again, not just ball sports, but different types of athletics and those wonderful things. So it's quite a good comprehensive thing that they can have there. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ben. I'm conscious that we're coming to the end of our allotted time. So I'll go through these very quickly. So which foreign languages are taught? French and Spanish, but we also do Latin. We are hoping to introduce Mandarin very soon, but I can't guarantee that will be in September, but we are looking at introducing Mandarin. We certainly want to do that. How many places do you have for year 9? It varies, but it's typically a handful, so 5 or 6. What happens for online learning if further lockdowns are imposed? Does the school offer computers? Well, we did actually lend some pupils computers. I think the feedback we've had from parents is that we did the online learning very well, that they were very pleased. We hope there won't be any further lockdowns, of course, but we are ready. We have a plan that will swing into action if required. We've learnt a lot, as all schools have, from the experience of last term, and we feel that we've improved our online provision considerably since then. So we've got that covered. What are your school hours? Well, in normal circumstances, they're from 8:35 in the morning till 3:45. At the moment, it's very slightly different because we've staggered the day to facilitate social distancing and the year group bubbles and so on. Somebody's asked about the intake for year 7. I think I've covered that. Yes, there's a question here about tutors. I think we've just got time for this. In fact, there are a couple of questions, but they're along the same lines. This every 3-week pattern, is it written in stone? I'm paraphrasing a bit here. Or if the need arose, would we see our tutees more than every 3 weeks? So Pablo, this is for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, if need be, we meet them every day, in the sense that if there's any particular need that needs to be addressed, absolutely. The other thing as well is Mr. Potter does a terrific job as well in terms of looking after them pastorally. So we kind of have a whole system of support whenever there is something that is needs further attention. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks, Pablo, and thank you all for tuning in. The questions started coming in thick and fast towards the end, so it might be that there are a couple that we haven't been able to get to. I may have missed them, but if that's the case, then we will respond in writing. We'll just send something out to everybody who attended, answering those questions. So again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I suppose to sum up, what's really distinctive about the Cedars is the idea that you've heard from all of us, I think, tonight, that education is something which really should be transformative. It should leave people changed for the better, not just in what they have, but in who they are. And it's very easy to forget, particularly, that adolescents are capable of great things. And they want us to expect great things from them. I think often it can be very easy to underestimate adolescence and to miss that. But adolescence is a wonderful time for tapping into those high ideals and nobility of spirit and channeling them into a positive direction. And that's why I think the most successful parents are those who regard success as more than just achievement, but who want their sons to be, or daughters, to be the sort of men and women who will make them proud. And that's our measure of success as well. So our vision is very much of boys who always give of their best, who have a wide range of interests and a wide circle of friends, who are intrigued by the world around them, boys who are able to assimilate new ideas because they see the big picture, who are reliable and keen to take responsibility, and who are at ease in any surroundings because they're at ease within themselves. We want our leavers to be boys who have young men who have the good sense of integrity to know when to take a stand and have the courage to follow through when necessary, to be able to make sacrifices for a worthwhile cause, and having that self-discipline that is needed to moderate the use of the good things around them, so that they can use them effectively, but without becoming enslaved by them. So, and above all, men who have learnt to value cheerful service and have come to realize what I mentioned before, that, the real secret of happiness lies in self-giving love. So, as I say in the video, if this is your vision of education, please do come and see us and see the school, and we can then take this conversation further. But thank you again for joining us, and hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I hope that we'll see you for real at some point in the future. Thank you.